Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel. I'm not going to do my typical intro in this clip because you will hear it in the next clip. This is just an add-on to the video that I've already created, or you can call it a precursor or a prelude to the video I created earlier. So earlier, y'all, I made a video, and you're going to hear it, like I said, in the next set of clips, just giving you an update on the 4th car accident that I was in, like about 2 months ago. Let me go over to my YouTube if you haven't seen the video, just to show you which video it is, so you can hear an update on my 4th car accident. Not an update, this is the update, but so you can hear the details of my 4th car accident if you haven't heard it already. So it's the video that says targeted individual documentation of, and you see the thumbnail that says targeted cars. That's what I could find on YouTube, y'all. I was just looking for a thumbnail to match the video. But anyways, that video, if you click on it, it says targeted individual documentation of my 4th car accident since my targeting started, or something like that is what the title says. And it's a decent video, y'all. Like, I give you the rundown of actually all 4 car accidents that I've been in during the course of my targeting. And just, refuting the false narratives that have spun around from these car accidents and defending myself, and pointing out the facts. And so that's what you hear in that video, me just giving you the details of the 4 car accidents that I've been in, and more so detailing the 4th car accident that I was in about 2 months ago. So anyway, this is just an update, y'all, on that situation. Just updating y'all on, what has transpired from the situation. By the way, with that 4th car accident, y'all, it was a day full of gang stalking, rev campaign on the roads, my horn going off, all kinds of crazy stuff before I did actually get in the accident. So please do check the video out, y'all, so you can be up to date with the things that I mentioned in this video in the next few clips. Anyway, y'all, so this is just an update on the situation and documenting kind of, something that took place today as it pertains to the situation. But the reason I'm making this precursor, this prelude video, prior to the actual video with me doing the documentation and the update, is because I just wanted to give another update. Something that happened a little while ago when I went to the gym, a little earlier, like around 4 o'clock, doesn't matter. Happened after I made the video documenting, the update about the car accident. And so I said, well, let me just include this in the video just because, recently I've been posting weightlifting updates. And although I don't have a video to go with this update, I still wanted to document it just for documentation purposes. Y'all know I'm keeping y'all up to date with my workout journey, and it's something I'm excited about. I actually did a 400-pound hack squat today, y'all. Not a 400-pound hack squat as if it's solo or singular. I did 12 400-pound hack squats today. So the last video I posted, y'all can see that it says 370-pound hack squat PR and more gym gang stalking documentation. Similar to that video, this is another update, right? I'm briefly telling y'all that I squatted 400 pounds on the hack squat machine. So I went up 30 pounds. I was successfully able to do the 400 pounds, and I did it for 12 reps. It was an accident, y'all. I didn't even mean to do it. It was really just, I was kind of, bazzity, as I've told y'all in prior videos. That's like island slang, and it just means like flustered or whatever. I was flustered because, certain things had happened before I got to the gym. Like I told y'all in the next clip, you're going to hear about what happened earlier as it pertains to my car accident and the update with the car accident. Anyway, so when I got in there, one of the cops that they used on me and there was in there, I was just flustered. I was in a flustered kind of way today. Bazzity, as I call it, right? So I was, I don't want to say I was doing stupidness. I was doing my routine, but I was, like I said, flustered and bazzity. So I put too much weight on the hack squat machine. I'm pretty sure they thought I did that intentionally. I did not. I did say in the last video, right, when I was updating y'all on the 370-pound hack squats, and y'all actually got to see a clip in the very beginning of that last video, you see it in the thumbnail, of me doing 12 reps at 370 pounds. As I was updating y'all and talking about doing those hack squats, I told you all that I would eventually like to try 400 pounds, and I feel like I could do it because that's, only 30 pounds heavier. 30 pounds is significant, trust me, especially if you're already at a PR. But still, it is, again, just 30 pounds. So I felt like in my head I could do more. I felt like I could do the 400, but I wasn't ready to try it yet. I wasn't going to try it yet. It was a complete accident. I was Bazadi. And so I threw the weight on the machine and I miscalculated. I put the 8 plates on. So 8 45-pound plates on, which is 360 pounds. And then I added 2 10-pound plates on both sides, right? So that's 380 pounds. That's already past the 370. And then I put 4 5-pound plates on. So 2 5-pound plates on both sides. I don't know what was going on with my brain. It just was not working correctly. And so that was 400 pounds. Like I literally put 400 pounds on the machine. And I'm doing the reps, right? I did the first half. I do 12 reps each set. I do 12 reps. I did half of that, right? I did half of the 12 reps. And I realized that I was just like really struggling. I was like, damn, I know I didn't eat breakfast today. Like I had bread and cheese this morning, but I didn't have my beef pate. I have like a whole diet plan, y'all. You know how it is when you really work out and you have your schedule and stuff and your eating schedule. I was like, I know I didn't eat my pate today, but I did have some bread and cheese and I took a little coffee. I don't even drink caffeine like that, but I still have some coffee left over from the other night when I was at work. That I went out of my way to drink coffee to try to stay up because they gave me this shift on my schedule that I wanted to make sure that I stayed up for. So I still had some coffee left from that. So I sipped that, sipping on the coffee a little bit, took a little sip, and I went to the gym and I was like, oh my God, I'm feeling weak with the squat. Everything else felt normal, like how it normally feels. But when I got to my last set, because my last set of 12 on the hack squat machine, I do at 370 pounds, not realizing I had put 400 pounds on the machine, I got halfway through the 12 reps and I was like, damn, I'm really struggling. I said, shit, the 370 is feeling real heavy today. I was like, okay, it's probably because I didn't eat. I had like bread and cheese, but I didn't have like what I typically eat. So I was like, that's what's going on. So I stopped for a couple seconds. Like I racked, I held up the weight with how the hack squat works. Y'all saw that video. If not, check it out to see how the machine works. You squat and then you can rack up the machine and stop, hold up the weight and stop and catch yourself. So I got halfway through the 12 reps and I realized my foot placement wasn't even working. Like typically with the 370, I can have my feet a little bit lower on the platform. The lower it is on the platform, the more difficult it is because the more pressure is going on your quads. The higher up on the platform, it's a little bit easier because you're getting glute and hamstring recruitment. You're still lifting the same heavy weight, but it's similar to doing like a deadlift. Conventional, with your legs together, it's more on the quad muscle. It's more difficult. And sumo, with your legs open, is a little bit more easier to do because you're having the recruitment of your hamstrings and your glute muscles helping you out. So I had to put my feet higher up on the platform to even complete the squats. I realized I tried to do the first 2 and I realized I almost couldn't even get up out of the squat. I was like, dang, it's really hard today. So I had to put my feet a little bit higher up on the platform. I didn't put it super high, but I put a little bit higher up on the platform and I realized I was able to hammer out half of the 12. And I was just like, damn, I'm like winded and everything. I had to rack up and I caught my breath, but I didn't want to sit there for too long. I didn't want too big of a break in between because it's supposed to be 12 straight reps. And I'm trying to get into hypertrophy. Really, the rep range for hypertrophy, I've talked about this in prior videos, is anywhere from 6 to 12 reps. But the higher, the better. So if you can do the 12 reps, that's the better. So I literally did the minimum for hypertrophy and I didn't want that to sit. So I caught my breath for like 2 seconds and I opened, took the rack down and I continued and I finished the 12 reps. But it was a struggle. I was like, oh my gosh, I said, damn, the 370 was hard today. I was like, what the heck? I was struggling, but I got it done, right? I did the 12 reps. Still didn't catch on that I did 400, It wasn't until I started taking the plates down from one side and I started doing the math in my head. I said, wait a minute, did I do 400 pounds? And I went over to the leg extension machine to do my last set of leg extensions. And I was like, oh, I'm starting to realize I did 12 reps at 400 pounds. I was like, what the heck? I was shocked I did it, because I felt like I could do it, but I wouldn't have tried a whole 12 reps straight. I definitely wouldn't have done that. And I definitely would have recorded myself too. Anyways, y'all, so this is just an update, like a positive update before we get into the negative stuff about the car accident and the update and what happened earlier before I went to the gym. So I just wanted to add that in here, y'all. There's no video recording because it wasn't intentional. I thought I was doing the same 370-pound hack squats that y'all saw in the last video. And I didn't realize till it was too late that I had actually done 400-pound hack squats. I was like, dang, that's why I was struggling like that. I was struggling so bad. It was so bad. My legs felt weak after, I did the leg extensions and my legs were feeling like jello. Then I did my my curls that I typically do. And I was like, I'm supposed to do a second set of squats. I do 72 hack squats. And then I go on the Smith machine and I do 48 squats on the Smith machine. But because I went to the gym later today, right, I was saying to myself, well, I'm only going to just do the main workouts. The main workouts typically are my 2 sets of squats. So I'll do the 72 squats on the hack squat machine. I'll do the 48 squats on the Smith machine. I'll do my leg extensions. Those are what I call the main workouts. I might have even skipped the leg curls. Today, instead of skipping the leg curls, I did the leg curls, I did the hack squats, I did the leg extensions, and I skipped the Smith machine squats. I never skipped those. But my legs felt like jello. It was kind of late. And so I was just like, let me go home. You know, I was just like, my legs feel like on fire right now. This is not typical. I was like, and I kind of put it together that I did 400-pound squats. I was like, let me take it easy. And I left. I could have done the squats on the Smith machine, but it was late too, like I said, and I was already flustered as it was. So I was just like, let me get out of here. But anyway, so yeah, this is just an update, y'all. A positive update before we get into the other stuff that you're going to hear in the next clips. All right, peace out. Hey, y'all, welcome back to my channel. If you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Sharifa, and my poetry name is New Lily. If you're new to my channel, please check out the links located in the description box and comment section. And in both locations, you'll find an identical set of links that lead to videos that talk about what started my targeting in 2020, as well as links that lead to videos that share information about the targeted individual program, i.e. COINTELPRO, because that's the true technical name of the program. It's COINTELPRO. Anyway, so you'll find info, links to videos that share info about this program, info on the tactics used on targets, info on the technology used on targets, and just info about the thing in general. Y'all, I've been going through it for about 5 years. This is going on my 5th year. It hasn't been a full 5 years yet, but we're very close to 5 years, the 5-year mark of me being targeted, because I sent a simple text in 2020, the summer of 2020. But anyway, so we're getting very close to that 5-year mark now. Anyways, y'all, so check out those links, though. You know, like I said, in the description box and comment section, you'll see an identical set of links. So you can find the same set of links in both locations. And the links lead to videos that talk about what started my targeting, like I said, in 2020, details about the text message, and just details about me and my life in general and the things I've experienced, the things I've learned. I learned so much info, y'all. Info I wish I knew earlier on in my targeting that I have made sure to make available to other targets so that y'all don't make some of the same mistakes I made or fall into some of the same traps that I've fallen into. I've fallen into many. And so that's what those videos are for. It's not just, like I said, for documentation purposes, but also to help other targets navigate through being targeted, because it's a very scary experience when you're targeted. You're isolated. You know, it's like a solo dolo type thing, right? That's just how the program works. It's like literally designed to isolate a person. And it's almost as though you have no rights. You know, like you surface level, yeah, you still have your rights as an American citizen or wherever you're at, actually, because this program is used all over the world. It derived in Eastern Germany. It was an Eastern Germany Stasi policing system that was adapted by America and later on other societies and countries around the world. But nonetheless, whatever type of citizen you are, it will seem like still have your rights, quote unquote, but you don't. You know, a lot of unfair things happen and it's not acknowledged. Like, let's say, for instance, you're being harassed and stalked on the road and then you get in a car accident. You can't go into the courtroom to fight the case and say, hey, I was being stalked and harassed all day long and I was under duress. You know, my mental state wasn't whatever. I was distracted. You can't say that in the courtroom and get a pass. It's just going to be like, okay, you're crazy. Here's a link to a mental institution that you can go to seek treatment. Do you need medication? Like, that's how it works. It's gaslighting, like, is the number one tactic used on targets, among many other tactics. Villainization is another one. Like, for instance, all this horrible treatment, you start getting angry, you start having reactions, you start saying offensive shit. More people are staring at you and getting angry. More people are recruited into the targeting, and it's easier to isolate. That's how the thing works. Like, they have you on camera. You know, it's a very comprehensive, diabolical program. It was designed decades ago, and it's only been perfected since then. It's been around for decades. But basically, you're on camera. So everybody's staring at you 24/7, especially in my case, because like I told you all, if you listen to my story, and those of you that are familiar already, my case is unique. I have a unique targeting case where I'm on a small island. And to my knowledge, no one has ever been targeted on this island aside from me. If you hear the reason why I was targeted, y'all, It's just ludicrous to me that I'm out of everybody on this island, all the crazy shit that has taken place on this island. And I get in trouble for saying this, but it's true. Out of all the fucking crazy shit that has happened on this island, I was deemed worthy of targeting for sending a text 5 years ago. Okay? Anyway, so that's what's going on. And so when that's happening to you, you're watched on. This is another form of technology that I share info on in the description box and comment section. You're watched on something called an insect drone. So it's a very high science, high tech program. It's AI based, and it's all, like I said, interconnected, and it's really scary when you start learning about it, y'all. But they have something called insect drones, and they use real insects. So it looks like real insects. It looks like a real mosquito. They got cockroaches as well. They have dragonflies. They have houseflies that are drones, and they're using real insects, like I said, when they're in the pupa stage, and developing them and turning them into drones. And the drones have cameras on them, microphones, so they can listen to you, see you. They use also these extremely small little gnats. That's the main type they like to use because, in those little private spaces where they don't want you to see them, they're landing these little small, really small gnats. You might notice that, when you first start getting targeted, you might start realizing, wait a minute, how are they seeing everything I'm doing? You start realizing that you're being watched on camera. You eventually learn relatively soon that you're being watched. And before you learn about these drones, you start trying to figure out how you're being watched. And you notice even when you're in your car, they're watching you. You come out at the gas station, somehow the camera is following you. And it took me a while, right? Research, etc. I didn't learn until 2 years into the targeting that I was a target to begin with. If you listen to my story, you'll hear how that happened. So at the end of 2022, I learned I was a target. And then I started doing research, and that's when I started learning about everything else. I was like, oh my God, so this is how they were watching me. So this is how they were seeing me when I came out the car and when I went into the gas station, into this place, into that place. So it's these drones that they're using, and they're surveilling you 24/7, and they're watching your every move, and they're giving access to the people around you. It depends on how high level your targeting is. I've seen some targets where it's like a few people, like designated people, have access to the cameras that are on them. And then I've seen a lot of targets like myself where it's a lot of people, and everybody in the vicinity of wherever the target is at has access to the cameras. So that's what's going on with me. My thing is super, super viral. It's high level, it's viral, and everyone on island has access to the cameras. It's a population, the island I'm on, a population of about 45,000 people. I talked about this in my last video, y'all. And then in my car accident number 4 video, because that's what this is about. This is a follow-up to that situation. My car accident number 4 video, I talked about, the targeting and, being watched by everyone 24/7. It's high-level torture is what it is. It's high-level torture. And then it's also, like I said, just a way to, it's not really just about torturing you. It's also humiliation, degradation, etc. All kinds of stuff happens with these cameras and with them allowing everyone to have access. It'd be one thing if it's just like the police officers that had access to the cameras, or the military, or certain designated people in the community if they were really trying to keep an eye on you. But it's like more detailed, and it's more deeper than that. It's really more so about torment and humiliation and that sort of thing, rather than actually keeping an eye on you. If you actually look at the people that are targeted, a lot of the people aren't even really dangerous or threats, quote unquote threats. If you look at the people that they're targeting, it's typically people that annoyed the wrong person and got thrown in the thing, and they're getting tortured, high level torture. So anyways, so nonetheless, y'all, so this is just kind of like an update, like I said. So check out those links in the description box and comment section. Listen to my story, get to know me, listen to my experience, and then listen to some of those videos I put, because I put so much info, y'all, about the program, about the technology they use to surveil you, about the technology, the shadow networking AI software technology they use to hack all of your technological devices. The thing is so high science, they can send you videos and you're recommended on YouTube with sensitization and subliminal messaging. They can change videos in real time. We are talking about some real high science technology, high level stuff. And if you're new to targeting and you don't know about this stuff, all of this sounds unbelievable, right? It sounds like some sci-fi type shit, like some stuff you would see in a movie. And until you experience it and start learning for yourself that this stuff really exists, it's going to seem astronomically strange and unrealistic. And that's why it's easy to gaslight targets and make it seem like they're crazy to people who aren't familiar with the program and the technology. And that's also why I put the videos I put together to help not only validate my experience, but to help validate your experience. Because when I first, like I said, got targeted and I just started learning about this stuff, I didn't have all of the information put together that I do now. And so it almost felt like I was going crazy, and like some of the things that was happening were not happening. And, like I said, one of the number one tactics used on targets is gaslighting and making you feel like you're crazy. And like, does that sound realistic? Why would so many people be chasing you? Who are you, the president? Like, why would they go through the extent of microchipping your brain and flying planes in the sky and using resources such as ambulances and police cars to chase you? Like, who are you? Are you a CIA agent? Because a lot of people that are targeted are higher level people, like CIA agents, FBI agents gone rogue, or whistleblowers, etc. Like, for instance, what's his name? Ted Gunderson, who was in the FBI, turned out to be a whistleblower. The other one, what's his name? Eric Snowden, who worked for the Patriot Act and turned into a whistleblower. Like, this level of torture and targeting and surveillance and resource usage is typically, you would think, designated for people of a higher level of importance, but they're using it on everyday individuals as well. So there are people like you and I who are absolute nobodies, that they use it on too. And it's the people like us where it gets more scary, because it's like unbelievable, and people wouldn't believe you, and you might start questioning your own sanity if you don't have the evidence to validate your experience. So check out the links in the description box in the comment section, y'all. I have videos that link to I have links to different videos showing info about the program, documentation, etc., patents for the technology they use on targets, info on why they target people like you and I, and not just, like I said, high level folks. A lot of the targets are like you and I. They're not all high level people. And I've heard so many different things about it, y'all. Like, for instance, what's his name? I'm not trying to go too deep down the rabbit hole right now, y'all. Y'all could do your research. Like I said, the info is there. I put it there neatly for you. I linked it very neatly, and I put descriptions and everything for y'all to check out the information if you want, right? So I'm not trying to go off on a tangent, but just quickly giving you a quick little summary into like some of the info you'll find in the description box and comment section. The Harvard DARPA scientist, my God, my brain is blank, y'all. That's why I started slowing down. I was trying to remember his name. So much has been going on, y'all. Same old targeted, right? This is documentation of the follow-up to the car accident. So, my brain is kind of blank, and it's early, and I was working last night. I just got off work, so a little while ago. So I'm tired. But I'm trying to remember the name. Let me go real quick so I don't have you all sitting here too long. Hold on. Robert Duncan. I didn't even have to go. Y'all, let me stay over here, though. I didn't even have to go to one of my videos. I was going to click on one of my videos and go to the video links that I'm telling you all about to see the name. But I remember Robert Duncan. He's one of the progenitors of the technology, and he helps to do research on the technology, and he's helped create some of the advancements with the technology. He's similar to the next one, what's his name? Oh my goodness, Elon Musk. He's up there with those tech guys that deals with this type of technology. Robert Duncan, he's a Harvard DARPA scientist, right? And doctor. Anyways, he has recently started, you could kind of say, whistleblowing himself, right? And he's been talking about like certain agendas when it comes to the technology. Excuse me, y'all, let me blow my nose. I'll be right back. All right, y'all, I'm back. I'm sorry about that. I had to blow my nose, and I was stammering and stuttering all over the place. I had to catch myself. Anyway, so like I've mentioned in prior videos, and one of the main videos you'll see linked in the description box and comment section, Robert Duncan is, and when I say recently, I mean in the recent years, like the last 3 to 4 years, has recently been coming out and doing even interviews with targets, right? Talking about this program and validating its existence, and talking about what the agenda behind it is, because there are several. But one of the agendas and why you'll find that someone like you and I could end up in this thing is basically the advancement of the technology. Because, according to Robert Duncan, there's a transhumanism agenda. And the agenda is to microchip everyone, basically. So eventually a world where everyone is microchipped, similar to kind of what you're hearing in Revelations, really. I don't want to bring up Bible talk because I got in so much problems, y'all, for bringing up Bible stuff. In the course of my targeting, I shared some offensive stuff I learned decades ago. I shared out of anger. Yeah, y'all, it was basically, like I said, if you listen to my story, you'll know what I'm talking about, or if you have already listened, you already know. Shared some offensive Hebrew Israelite propaganda, and still to this day being punished for it. But the funny part about it is, in my targeting, they've actually used some of those guys, or Hebrews, who belong to the camp of Hebrews that was sharing the offensive content, and I'm not coming for them, I'm not throwing them under the bus, but I'm just speaking the facts. Some of the guys from that Hebrew church, they have used some of them in my targeting to gang stalk me. They're wearing the purple outfit and everything. It's just crazy to me. Anyway, I shared some of their content out of anger. I wasn't even associated with them or their denomination of Hebrew, but I was just honestly, genuinely looking for Hebrew Israelite videos. At the time, that was what my belief system was. That's, in high school, what I was taught, right? We were taught that we were Hebrew, and so that was our understanding and our, I guess you could say, quote unquote, religion at the time. And so I was dealing with all of this, what felt like spiritual warfare. And so I started looking into Hebrew videos about protection, and videos about keeping yourself safe from spiritual attacks. And with the technology, with the AI shadow networking software, they were sending all of these videos with subterfuge and basically subliminal messaging. Remember, I told y'all this is some high science stuff. And so you'll notice that a lot of this technology will sensitize you. They hack all of your technological devices with the technology, and they'll send things to sensitize you. Look how the lawnmower stopped. Anytime I start talking about the Hebrew Israelite stuff that I sent, that I still to this day get backlash for, you'll start hearing a bunch of noise in the neighborhood, because a lot of the people in this neighborhood are friends with my parents, and a lot of stuff I learned from my dad. And so they start to make noise in the background and stuff because they want this just like dagger in me, right? And they don't want any excuse for anything. It's this weird thing they do in the neighborhood. They're very subjective, and they have it in for me. I didn't do anything to them, don't know them personally, but they have it in for me. And so they don't want me to, they don't want any type of leeway for me. They want it to just be like all of this attack on me and I'm the bad guy type of thing. So if I say, okay, well, I learned this in my household or whatever, they'll start making noise in the background to cover over what I'm saying, because they just want it to be like dagger on me. Like I said, it's not even about me sharing that offensive stuff, because like I said, they've used people from that camp, that Hebrew Israelite camp, whose info I was sharing in my car. They've used guys from that camp to gang stalk me. So it's not even about what I shared. I don't even think that's the issue either. I don't really know what it is. It's crazy and weird to me. It really feels like a spiritual attack. But anyways, nonetheless, y'all, I didn't want to go off on a tangent and start digging into stuff again, old stuff that I've talked about in my full story. If you listen to my story, you'll hear all of the particulars and what led to my targeting going viral. You'll hear about the offensive stuff I shared, why I shared it, etc., etc. I don't want to go off on a tangent in this video. But, however, I will say that, sharing that offensive content is what led to the targeting going viral and what led to my circumstances worsening. And so that's one of the things, or the traps that I fell into, that I try to save other targets from falling into, because that's just how it works. You fall victim to the targeting. You get antagonized, harassed, etc., stalked, whatever. Have these angry reactions. Some targets have physical reactions. Thank the Most High, mine were not physical. But anyway, physical reactions some have. Mine were verbal, right? And then you get vilified and villainized for those reactions. It's massive gaslighting. It's called reactive abuse, which is one of the main tactics used on targets. But anyways, back to what I was saying about Robert Duncan, y'all, because I did start to go off on a tangent. What I was talking about basically was how they use the tech. Why one of the agendas behind it, like the main agenda, according to Robert Duncan, for the technology and for the microchipping of random individuals and the targeting of random individuals and the use of all of this technology and all of these resources on random individuals that aren't, like high level people. It's not like I was in NASA. I'm not an Eric Snowden. I didn't work for the Patriot Act. I'm not a whistleblower. I didn't work for the FBI. I was a teacher, a simple, everyday teacher. I was an English teacher, and I went to school. I went to college. I lived a relatively normal life, I've never gotten into trouble prior to my targeting. I hadn't even gotten a speeding ticket. I lived as an upright citizen. It can happen to anyone. And again, the agenda, there is an agenda behind it, according to Robert Duncan. So what he was saying, and if you check out the links in the description box and comment section, you'll find the video where Robert Duncan is talking about what I'm talking about right now. The title of the video is Harvard DARPA Scientist or Doctor, something like that, exposes mind reading tech or something like that. So y'all listen to that video. It's a good listen. He was talking about, why you'll find everyday people like you and I getting targeted. And it's basically because they want to advance the use of the technology. The agenda is transhumanism and the New World Order. He literally used the term New World Order. I'm not pulling this out the side of my neck. This is what the man said in the video. And he said the agenda is for everyone to be microchipped and hooked up to this computer interface system. And he said it will be the end of democracy. He said it will be the end of free will, the end of this, the end of that. And so similar to what we targets experience, where we're feeling like we're free, but we're not, like you're physically free. You're not in a prison cell. Like right now, if I want to go in my car and drive to McDonald's, I could do that. But I'm being watched 24/7. Everyone has access to the cameras that are on me. If I go to take a piss right now, they're watching me. So I'm not truly living. I'm captive. I'm being held captive, even though physically I'm free. And so that's the life that everyone will be living eventually. That's the agenda, according to Robert Duncan. And everybody's brains will be connected and everyone will be able to talk telepathically to each other, similar to how they can hear your thoughts with the brain-to-computer interface technology, how they can hear everything that I think. That will be everyone's reality. And that's what the agenda behind it is. And that's why they're using all of these resources on little old me and little old you. And you're a nobody. You're like, what the fuck? I didn't do anything. It's like, okay, I just pissed off this person, but damn, this extent, like I'm getting punished like this. What the hell? And according to Robert Duncan, what it is they'll use people like you and I. I'm sure you've pissed off somebody. You pissed off the wrong person. And they'll say that you're a good candidate for this program because you've pissed off the wrong person. They don't care about you. So you're just like a peon that's good for experimentation, like a lab rat, because you're this person that pissed off this many people or that many people. Really, it starts with one person. You piss off one person, you get thrown into targeting, and then from there you just fall in trap after trap after trap, and you get pissed and you have these reactions, and more people hop on and more people hate you. And it's not just me. Trust me. I've done my research. It happens to all targets. We are all vilified and villainized, and a bunch of people hop on the hate campaign. It's a well-crafted program. But anyway, you pissed off whoever you pissed off. You got thrown in the thing, and you were considered or deemed a good candidate for experimentation. And that's really what it is, like a sacrificial lamb, if you will. And so that's really what your role is in this thing. So it seems like they're using all of these resources on little you. You're like, damn, what I did wasn't that bad. I mean, I know I had some reactions and pissed off a few people. Oh my God. But it's deeper than you, and it's deeper than me, and it's bigger. It's a bigger picture behind it all. You're just like, okay, you pissed off someone, the wrong person. You're a good candidate for experimentation. That's what the use of the technology is really about, and all of these resources. It's about the bigger picture and not you. So anyways, that's what's going on with that. I try not to talk about these things, y'all, because there are targets that get out. Hear the crazy gaslighting shit. Now look, somebody revving by with the crazy shit. This is the mentality of some of the people that are listening. When you're speaking real facts about what's really happening, they're like ostriches, or I think it's flamingos, that want to dig a hole in the sand and cover their head instead of see the danger that's coming. You know how flamingos do that? I can't remember if it's ostriches or flamingos. They said if they see like something coming, like danger, rather than dealing with it, if they feel overwhelmed, they'll dig a hole in the sand and bury their head and let whatever happen, like pretend like it's not happening. That's the mentality of some of the gang stalkers. I said, let me try not to talk about this, whatever. I hear somebody reffing by, and that it never feels that always happens. Like, you be spitting real facts. You have the documentation. You have the scientist that said it in a video. And rather than listening to what you're saying, they're reffing by and getting angry that you're sharing information. It's just like this real crazy type of mentality. I can't make sense of it. But anyways, nonetheless, things bigger than me. It's way bigger than me, and it's really not anything that I intend to try to stop, because I can't. It's out of my control and out of my hands. I am a believer in God and the Bible. I'm not trying to push my belief system on anyone. And I've never been the type to do that. I did that out of anger in my car in Florida. I was trying to offend people because I was angry. It was reactive abuse. I have never been the type to push my belief on anyone. I don't care what you believe or don't believe. I don't give a rat's ass. But I am a believer in God and the Bible. And so I believe everything's in God's hands, and I leave it there. Like, I can't control what's happening here in the world, and everything that's happening is supposed to happen. And there's a certain way things are going to happen, and that's just how it's supposed to be. I'm not trying to stop anything. Little old me. I have no power and no control. I just learned this stuff because I got targeted. Obviously, I started doing research and looking into stuff and learning information. And the more I learned, the more I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You know, it's like the Matrix. A lot of targets say that, like, when you get into this thing or you get thrown into this thing, it's not like it's a choice. It's not like you say, hey, I want to take the red pill. You know, you don't get a choice with this. You get thrown in, and the red pill is stuffed down your throat is what it is. But you start realizing, like, whoa, you start learning so much stuff, and it just is what it is. Like, it's not my fault. I learned this info. The info's out there. It's public info. You have some people that are not targeted that know about this stuff because they dig into this type of stuff. Anyway, it's not something I intend to try to stop. I can't. You know, it's bigger than me. I just want to get out the targeting. So I don't even really talk about this stuff. I haven't talked about it in years, really. You know, the last time I posted a video about this stuff was like maybe 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, something like that. Don't talk about this stuff because it will definitely likely lead to you, your targeting worsening and you not getting let go. You know, so it's not what I'm trying to do. I've seen some targets actually successfully get out of the program. But it's just, you know, again, just a reminder of my situation and the unfairness of it all when certain things happen. And so it's just like, it leads to me talking about the deeper things and the agenda and the this and the that and whatever. Sometimes I do end up digging down that hole again, that rabbit hole. Then with this video, y'all, long story short, right? This video is just a follow-up on the car accident video. Let me scroll there. That video I posted 2 weeks ago that says targeted individual documentation of, I believe the rest of it says my 4th car accident. Listen to that video, y'all. Here's the documentation of my 4th car accident as a target. It happened about 2 months ago at this point. Now, time is flying. Maybe a month and a half ago, about 2 months ago. I don't know. Time is flying, y'all. About 2 months ago it happened, right? This car accident, my 2nd car accident. My 4th car accident since my targeting has started. There's a reason why earlier in the clip I mentioned that I hadn't even gotten a speeding ticket before my targeting started. You know, I talked in detail about the car accidents that I've been in that video, right? And how a lot of it was due to mental state, harassment, antagonization, stalking, right? And then I get gaslit about it, and it's like, oh, you don't take accountability and this and that and da-da-da-da. And it's not even taking into consideration the circumstances. The fact that at age 29 was when my targeting started, right? I was 28 making 29. And I didn't get into my first car accident until a year later after the targeting started. So age 30. Age 30, I got in my first car accident ever, right? I had never been in a car accident prior to my targeting. Age 30 was about a year after the targeting started. From there, I got in 3 back-to-back car accidents. So in the span of the first 2 years of my targeting, from 2020 to 2022, remember the targeting started in 2020, I was in 3 back-to-back car accidents. They started at age 30. So that means for 15 years, I want you to understand the particulars, right? At age 15 is when I started driving. I got my driver's permit at age 15, right here on this same island. I was driving down here for many, many years, no car accident. Then I moved to the States. And I was living in Florida for a number of years. I drove on the I-95. I drove on Interstate 75. I drove on all those busy-ass, crazy-ass roads where you have people speeding and you have like 4-lane, 5-lane traffic. For years. I drove in Tallahassee. I drove in Georgia. I drove out of state. Never got in a car accident, right? So for 15 years, I was driving from age 15 here on this island all the way up to age 30. Where I was living in Florida and I drove in all these different states in the United States. Never got in a car accident, never even got a speeding ticket. Then the targeting starts at age 29. And a year later, at age 30, my first car accident happens. And in the span of those first 2 years after the targeting started, I was in 3 back-to-back car accidents. How could you not take that into consideration and realize that it was the targeting? You know, they'll make it like, oh, she doesn't take accountability. Like I was just playing bumper cars on the road. Like at age 30, I was going through a midlife crisis, not taking into consideration the targeting. No, I just woke up at age 30 and decided to turn into a reckless driver, and I just hopped in my car and started playing bumper cars on the road. It wasn't that people were following me, revving by, everyone's staring at me. I'm under the pressure and anxiety. They've seen me have live anxiety attacks in that car because when it's happening, they rev by wickedly, some of them. Live attacks, right? Live anxiety attacks in the car because everybody's staring at me. Some of them are participating. It's fun for them, revving by and doing all the crazy shit they do, right? It got so bad for the fourth car accident that day they actually made my horn go off. I explained in that video what they were doing with my car horn, how they were making it go off at certain times. They made it go off for so fucking long, I had to pull over, turn the car off, and unhook the car battery. And then they were revving by. They flew the noise campaign plane in the sky. All kinds of noise campaigns and distractions. And my mental state was not where it should be. I was anxious. I was sitting at the edge of my seat like this. I was driving foolishly and not paying attention. I had the big dark shades on my eyes. I made a stupid illegal turn. I was trying to fly and get to my neighborhood. I should have just went straight home that day. That's first of all, that was my fault. And I shouldn't have listened to what I was listening to, knowing that it was rush hour and all these people have access to me. That was stupid too. I'm sitting there listening to a documentary of them talking about the conspiracy theory that Whitney Houston might have been killed as the target during rush hour. So that was stupid. And I can acknowledge that. And I made an illegal turn. That was stupid. I can acknowledge that. That's not the argument. I know I made the illegal turn. I did that. That was my fault. I shouldn't have done that. But I was not paying attention and I was not making wise decisions either. I was under duress. I'm looking like a bugged out, paranoid freaking person on the road as they're revving by heinously while they're talking about the horrible thing that happened to Whitney Houston, her passing away, and the fact that there was defensive wounds on her face, and it seems like there might have been foul play. And man, even when I stopped for gas before the accident actually happened, they were revving by like crazy on the road, rev campaign, while they're talking about the particulars with this lady, right? When they made my horn go off on the other side of the island, before I got to the part where my accident happened, they were talking about the conditions of her organs, the condition of her organs before the incident happened with her drowning and whatever else that happened to her. No comparison to me, but this is what they do. It's psychological warfare. Everything bad or negative that plays on the screen, they make noises in the background as if it applies to me. They made my horn go off because they were saying that she was in heart failure and this was going on with her organs and that was going on with her organs. And it was going off so long, I actually had to pull over and unplug the car battery. So it's just so unfair. I was completely distracted the whole ride while I'm driving home. I'm arguing with them, right? Having this one-sided argument with them about why Whitney Houston and I are nothing alike. Like, that's how it works. It's like this crazy psychological warfare thing that happens. It's not like they're just surveilling you and you're aware of the fact that they're watching you. Like, that would be one thing. But they're interacting with you constantly via noise campaigns while you're on the road. I mean, you're making somebody's car horn go off while they're driving? I mean, come on, really? And for so long, I had to actually pull over and unhook the battery. Are you serious? So anyways, nonetheless, right before I got in the car accident, I was on this back road about to go into the highway. And I was supposed to go and do a U-turn by the light and then drive up and get to my neighborhood. But they started talking about the particulars of Whitney Houston's death and how it seemed like there might have been foul play and how they were finding defensive wounds on her face and something with Ray J, something that wasn't adding up with Ray J. And as they're talking about it, the noise campaign plane flies overhead and I start hearing ref campaign. So I start sitting up in my seat like this and I try to rush across the road, and it wasn't a rush either. I wasn't speeding. But when I say rush, I mean I didn't do the right protocol. I was supposed to get into traffic, and then I was supposed to go to the light, and I was supposed to do a U-turn, and then I could get up to where I needed to go. There's this shortcut, and it's not really a shortcut anymore. They've now made it clear it's not a shortcut. You can't use it as a shortcut. For years, people have used it, but you're not supposed to use it as a shortcut. I explained in the video where the accident happened. It's like four lanes, right? You have one side on the left side where two cars can drive going up on the left side, like you're going to the west side of the island. Then you have the right side where you also have two lanes, and that's people going to the east side of the island. And then there's this median in the middle that splits up the highway. At this point, this intersection, there's a break in the median, and straight across is Home Depot. So a lot of people will just drive straight across into Home Depot if they're going to Home Depot. Or in my case, if you're trying to get to the right side of the road, the left side of the road, because you're trying to get to the east end of the island, you might drive across and get into the traffic if the road is clear. I did not see this car, right? So it was already an illegal turn, and that's what really bit me in the butt. right? It's already an illegal turn that I took. But I was so distracted. I had the big black shades on. I had the big loud thing playing in my ear. The plane was flying overhead. I was engaging with the plane, talking about, I know why they're flying by. They're flying by because they're talking about killing Whitney Houston, this and that. I look in the road. I did not see the car. I'm very paranoid, right, when it comes to car accidents because I've been in 3. I did not see this guy. He was in this little small, I don't want to say beat up car, like, but it was dingy and dingy, and I'm not trying to insult him or anything. I've driven cars like that too. Like, shit, the car I'm driving now is pretty old and whatever else, but it's a bigger vehicle. It's a Jeep. But the car was small and it's like this grayish, blackish kind of color. I didn't see it. I did not see it. I looked, I did not see the car. I didn't see it at all. And I'm so distracted too. I'm focusing on the ref campaign and the plane and the Whitney Houston and them saying that she was killed and this and that. I drove slowly. I wasn't speeding. I drove slowly across the road to get to the other side. And then I just hear this, like this screeching sound, and I look up and I realized that there was this guy coming straight for me. I was like, wait a minute, where he came from? And because I was going so slow, I wasn't speeding. He hit right into the side of me. Instead of hitting the gas is what I should have done and trying to speed across now, since I realized that this car was actually in the lane and coming straight for me as I was crossing over. I kind of, in my head, I think I don't want to say panic, but it feels like I panicked and I hit the brakes. Instead of hitting the gas and trying to get over quickly, I hit the brakes instead, and he hit the brakes. And so he slammed right into the side of my vehicle. And I'm just like, fuck it, man. I'm so mad at myself because I'm like, this is the 4th car accident now. I should have just went home after the gym. I just like to go for a drive sometimes because like it's another nightmare being in your room and everybody in the neighborhood is staring at you and doing noise campaigns all the time. It's a nightmare. You don't want to stay home. And that's what caused a lot of my car accidents in the earlier years of my target, in those first 2 years too. I was on the road. I've said this in my full story, from morning to nighttime. I did not come home. I used to not come home. I would be on the road from morning to nighttime. The only time I would stop was to work. Other than that, I was driving up and down the island, just driving, wasting gas. And I had money at the time too, because I was teaching and I was doing security at night. So I was making a decent paycheck, and it's just me. I even had an apartment. I didn't even want to stay in my apartment because they were doing noise campaigns in the apartment. I'm trying to cook. They're walking and stomping on the roof. You know, somebody's outside of my freaking door, making weird, creepy noises outside the door or outside the window. It was just a bunch of crazy, weird shit that you deal with as a target. So I was always on the road. Like if I could get my hands on the money that I spent in gas from all the driving up and down the island that I was doing in that time period, I probably would be okay right now. I spent so much money in gas. I was driving from day to night, unless I was stopping to teach or do security. I was driving from day to night. So it's just like that can lead to an accident too. If you're on the road constantly and then you're dealing with gang stalking and distraction and anxiety and this and that. That's just how it works, man. I've had so many targets talk about car accidents. You know, it's just a common thing that happens with us. Car accidents, financial ruin, etc., etc. It's the same pattern with all of us. That has to mean something. So anyways, nonetheless, I was in 3 back-to-back car accidents in the first 2 years of my targeting. Then things slowed down. Obviously, I tried to relocate off island, came back to island when the thing blew up, did not have transportation. For a good 2 years, I had no transportation. Then about a year ago, my mom started letting me use her vehicle. So I started getting to use her vehicle and get around. Didn't have any car accidents, didn't have any issues, driving slow, taking my time, getting to where I need to go to. My dad bought me this car. I'm paying him back for it, by the way. Paid about $4,000 for it. So a neat Jeep, right? It's a Commander. So it's a decent old car. It's a decent oldie, right? It's a decent quality, a good quality old car. Very good quality car. I've been okay with it. I was on the road for about 3 to 4 months with it, no car accident. Then this day happens with the gym, and I'm just like, I don't want to go home right now. I don't feel like sitting in the bed and twitching and turning and tossing in the heat while I'm being stared at. I just don't feel like it. I'd rather stay on the road and be driving today. So I said, let me go for a drive. I take myself and I put my earphones in like I normally do. And I sometimes either listen to music or I'll put something on YouTube to listen to. I saw this thing in my newsfeed about Whitney Houston. You know how they do with the technology, sending subliminal messaging and things with sensitization. I believe that's why they sent it to me. Because in the video, there was a conspiracy theory about Whitney Houston being killed. So my stupid ass, I clicked on it. And I'm listening to it. And as I'm listening to it, they're engaging with me with noise campaign. Like I said, revving on the road. Just a bunch of noise campaign in the background. And eventually it led to them making the horn go off. And then from there, it was just downhill from there, man. You know, it was the gas station, them revving by when they're talking about killing her. I get to the back road, they're flying the plane in the sky. And so I'm answering to the plane. I'm like, I know why y'all flying the plane by, because you say she murdered her, you know, Raging might have murdered her and blah, 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 blah. Whatever the case was. Y'all let this demonic noise campaign come by, because it's the same vehicle that drove by hard just now, ignorant, when I was talking about the fact that I didn't really want to be talking about this stuff, you know, the Robert Duncan stuff, and the person drove by super hard. This is a moron in that vehicle. Anyways, so like I was saying, so when they were talking about killing her, they were just doing a bunch of noise campaign in the background, and I was extremely distracted. You know, in a court of law, and I keep saying this, even if you murdered somebody, right, or whatever the case is, you did some crazy shit, you had some horrible reaction, and you did something that was quote unquote out of character for you, they take into consideration your mental state. You get observed by a psychologist or a psychiatrist, whichever one, right? There's a reason why, because mental state does play a part in things. That's why they have the term temporary insanity. I'm not saying it was temporary insanity when I got into accidents. I wasn't criminally insane. Of course not, but my mental state wasn't what it normally is. What are the odds that I would get in 3 back-to-back car accidents in the span of 2 years? When prior to that, I had been driving for 15 years and hadn't even gotten a speeding ticket. Are you kidding me? And so now this day happens where all this distraction is happening. You actually made my horn go off so bad I pulled over and had to unhook the battery. And then I get in an accident, and it's just like retribution. Like, I get punishment for it. It's like I don't even expect to not get some sort of punishment. Like, I gave my insurance info gladly. I understand that, right? Because even though I'm in the situation I'm in and it's very unfair, I still did make an illegal turn. It's not like they physically grabbed me and made me turn my vehicle into the traffic. So despite the distraction and whatever my mental state was, I made the turn, right? So I gave my insurance info gladly, because that guy that hit into me, it's not his fault I'm targeted. You know, he's just a casualty in it all, really. And anybody that I got in an accident with, it's not their fault that this is my circumstance. You were just a casualty in it all, unfortunately. So yeah, here's my insurance info. I have insurance, whatever. But I got 3 citations. Like, I mean, come on, you couldn't even give me a break and all this. You know what happened that day? 3 citations? Like, you didn't have to give me 3 citations. And it's when it happened, too, is really why I'm making the video. Because I already knew that I was going to be contacted. When I spoke with the officer that day, he was very nice to me. And he said, I like the fact that you took accountability, you know, because he asked me who was at fault for accident. I said, me. I said, I made an illegal turn and I didn't see this guy and he hit into the side of me. He said, I like that you took accountability. He said, I'll talk to you in a few days, whatever. He said, I'll call you in a few days with the ticket. The few days passed and never heard from him. So I was like, well, maybe they're actually going to give me a break because they realized what happened, that they know what was done that day, right? I was like, maybe they'll just let the guy take my insurance and I'll get a break. But in my head, I'm thinking to myself, well, I know for the insurance claim, maybe I do have to be given some sort of ticket. So I was just waiting for the other shoe to drop. I was waiting to hear from him. It's been about 2 months I hadn't heard from him. A month, maybe a month and a half. I'm not good with time, y'all. I'm losing track of time with the targeting. About a month and a half to 2 months. But it's like this morning now, I'm laying on my bed. It's when I got the ticket is why it feels like retribution and why I'm saying this is so unfair. So this morning now, I'm laying on my bed and what made me look into it? I'm getting back into school, y'all. I'm trying to get my master's degree in psychology. For years, I wanted to be an addiction psychologist or an addiction specialist, whatever. I really want to be an addiction specialist. I'm looking at addiction counselor because it's quicker and easier to get into. So it's like you could get your foot in the door quickly without having like the credentials. All you have to do is kind of like have the hours, really, like the training hours. If I could even get training hours with the targeting and what's happening with me. But if you can get the training hours, then you can get into the door relatively easy without having all the credentials that you need to be like an addiction specialist or a psychologist or a psychiatrist or any of those things like that. So that's why I was looking at addiction counselor, because I've already taken the steps to get back into school. I applied, right, to an online school that's accredited. Y'all already know, if you've listened to my stories, that I have my bachelor's degree in English. I was an English teacher for 2 years. And then the targeting got bad and I resigned, etc., etc. So now I'm like, let me get back into school. That was always my plan anyway. I was like, you know, I keep procrastinating and every day I'm going and I'm working on it and I'm coming home. It feels like my life has no purpose. I'm still targeted. I'm like, let me get back on my feet and really try to whatever. So I finally got into school, before I lost the day job. Y'all know what happened with that situation. I'm maybe trying to rehash that right now. Before that happened, while I was still working there, I was looking at getting back into school. And my intention at the time was like, okay, I'm going to get into psychology. I want to become a psychologist. That's going to take a few years. In the meantime, I can work this job as a corrections officer because this is a good job and it's a good way to get on the job experience, because I wanted to be some sort of, what I was thinking at the time was like a psychologist or a counselor, mental health specialist, whatever, with the inmates or the detainees, because a lot of people in prison have mental health issues. You know, a lot of the times that's how they end up in prison. You know, they had a hard life or something happened to them, whatever. Or maybe they've just made a poor decision and now they're going through mental health issues because they're in this predicament, whatever it is. So that was my mindset. I was like, okay, well, I've always wanted to get into mental health. Really, I wanted to specifically get into addiction, right? That was my main goal because I dealt with addiction in my early 20s. But it didn't have to be addiction. It could have been any mental health. I'm into mental health, period. I've always wanted to get into that. So anyways, nonetheless, that was my goal, you know, just to get into psychology in some way or shape, form, or fashion. And I was thinking in my head, well, I'm already in the door here in the prison. I'm working for the borough as a corrections officer. I can work as a corrections officer for a few years with them. And then when I get my degree, my master's or whatever, doctorates, whatever I decide to do, then I can transition into working for them under a different title, like as a counselor or a psychologist, whatever. That was my goal. Of course, you know what happened with the job. I'm not even going to talk about it right now, right? Y'all already know what took place with that, right? So that kind of, I want to say, it didn't deter me because I still had the plans to do what I was planning to do at school, but it did kind of knock me on my butt for a little bit and knock the wind out of me. What happened? But before I got fired or let go from that job, I had already applied for school. So that was my plan. I was really full throttle going with it. I had applied for the school down here to try to get into the psychology graduate program. Y'all, my sister is pulling up. I'm sorry. I heard somebody pulling up and I got confused outside. So I was just trying to get into the psychology graduate program. And so I applied to UVI, which is a school down here in the Virgin Islands. And I was just looking into, you know, the particulars about the program. And I see that they have a good psychology master's program, et cetera, et cetera. But unfortunately, because I have an English degree and not a psychology degree, I was missing a few prerequisites. There were a few prerequisites that was missing off of my transcript that would stop me from getting into the program. So I was trying to figure out ways and methods that I could take just those few courses and get into the program. And it was complicated. I don't want to go into the details of why it was complicated, but it was complicated for me to take those courses at the school here on island. Y'all, hold on a second. Let my sister go in the house. Hold on a second. Yeah, so it was this complicated process that kind of deterred me from taking the classes because it was like, it seemed as though I would have to get a whole nother degree, a psychology degree, just to get those few courses. I think it's like 4 classes that I needed just to be able to get those classes and get into the program. And it's a long story of why that's the case, y'all. But that's what the case is if I were to do it here. So then my sister started telling me about this online school that she's taking courses at. It's accredited, et cetera, et cetera. And so I was like, well, let me look into them because she was saying, you know, she's getting things done in a 6-month period. And, you know, it's a lot quicker. It's an expedited process. And it's, you know, from doing my own research about the school and stuff, I'm realizing that it's a competency. Sorry, I was having trouble remembering the term, y'all. It's a competency-based program. So it's based on what you know, basically. So if you come in with more knowledge than, let's say, a classmate, and you can pass the exams that they give you exams, and some of them give you essays. If you can get the essays done, and if you can finish the exams quicker than, let's say, your classmate because you know more info, then you can move forward faster. So it's like it allows you to finish faster because of the way that it's designed. And so I like that, you know, because I like to read and stuff. As much as I stammer over my words and whatever else, I love reading and I get things done real quickly. So it's like, I know I could get through this thing real quick. And so that got me excited when I realized that I could do this school instead, get the second degree, because that's basically what I'm going to end up doing, getting a second degree in psychology. I can get it quickly. They're going to take a lot of the credits from my English degree and put it towards the degree anyway. I can get it done quickly, and then I can transfer it over and get into the master's program here on island, at the school here on island. So that's what I recently started doing, y'all. I actually got the ball rolling. I got off my ass, you know, got out of the depressive stupid that I was in, and I started to push for it again and try again, right? So I'm in classes and stuff, and I'm not in classes yet. I'm enrolled now, right? And it's just now getting my classes. It starts in September, and getting financial aid dealt with, et cetera, et cetera. So hold on, y'all. Let this gang stalker drive by. Anyways, y'all, so now that that's the case, I've been just kind of looking into what career field I'm going to get into, because obviously it's there was no specific thing. I was anything mental health, really. I just want to be a psychologist, and I want to deal with mental health. But specifically, if I'm keeping it real with you, like I told you all, since my early 20s, I've wanted to get into addiction specifically because of my own experience with it and how I can empathize with the patients. So I forgot how I came, what made me, I don't even remember what made me look into it this morning, y'all. I think I was just looking up the salary of a psychologist. And I was looking up the salary of a psychiatrist. Because y'all know it's two different things, or if you don't know, I'm telling you now. A psychiatrist is a doctor, like an actual MD or DO. So they can practice medicine and they can prescribe medication, etc. But it's the same process as becoming a doctor. You have to go to medical school, etc., etc. It's a longer process. Whereas with a psychologist, you can do the same things a psychiatrist does with the exception of prescribing medication. And it takes long too. It's kind of lengthy too, but it doesn't take as long as becoming a doctor. You can become a doctor, you're just not going to be a medical doctor. It's a different kind of, like get your doctorate's degree, that type of way. So that's what I was more so focused on, trying to become a psychologist. And I was just looking at the salary this morning and looking at that type of stuff like that, just for motivation. And as I was doing it, something told me to look into addiction psychology. I think what it was, I know what made me do it. Now I remember, y'all. Let me go to my history. Now I remember. In my news feed on YouTube, I saw this video. Y'all see it? A crackhead hatches from his egg. That's what I saw. And so in my head, I was like, they're horrible. I'm like, why would they post or record this person that's obviously addicted to drugs coming out of, I guess, the only shelter they were able to find, and say that it's a crackhead hatching from an egg? I thought that was horrible. And I started reading the comments and stuff, and I saw something about psychology and psychiatry, and it reminded me of what I'm trying to do. And so that's why I started looking into salaries and stuff, and then specifically addiction. I remembered in my early 20s that I actually wanted to be an addiction specialist or an addiction psychologist / psychiatrist, whatever. And so that's when I came across addiction counselor, which is not as in depth as a psychiatrist or a psychologist. The pay is decent though. From what I saw, when I looked up the salary, it was anywhere from 50 to 80,000. So I was like, that's not bad. The pay is decent, but it's less time. It takes less time because you don't need all the credentials. You really just need the training hours and stuff. And so I was just looking into that, and I was like, that's a way for me to get my foot in the door sooner than, if I were to just go through the process and then start doing stuff, because you do need like a certain amount of training hours anyway. When you get your degree and stuff and you try to become a psychologist, you still can't just get a job like that. You still have to have training hours. And so I was like, if I start now or whenever, next year or whatever, start trying to, get training hours and stuff, then I could get myself prepared. So I was just looking at the videos and stuff and getting more and more excited the more I learned about, how it works, especially with addiction counseling, where it's not as difficult to get your foot in the door and stuff. I was just getting excited and looking at the stuff. Of course, whenever I'm doing stuff like that, the technology, it seems like, starts attacking me. And it starts sending me, like I said, manipulative stuff or subliminal stuff, right, to create friction. So I'm watching a show, and all of a sudden they start talking about this woman that was a side chick, basically. She didn't know she was a side chick. I'm watching the show Who the Bleep Did I Marry on Hulu. And throughout the different episodes, they've been sensitizing me all with the technology, the same shadow networking technology I've been telling you about. They were sending all kinds of horrible stuff earlier. Like, they were sending some real horrible cases earlier. I'm not even going to go into the details of what they sent. But now they're talking about this girl that was a side chick, and she didn't know she was a side chick. And, when she started putting the pieces together, she realized that the guy was married and he had a kid and this and that. Of course, they're making noises in the background. So I just rolled my eyes and I turned over on my side. And I went back into my phone because I know I was just looking into some productive stuff. And they're not going to rehash or reopen that stupid false narrative, and distract from what I felt like was a positive moment for me. And that's what happens with the technology, like, constantly. Even I told y'all with the recent, like, stuff in the gym that happened, and all of a sudden my looks was attacked with the technology, and my self-esteem was attacked with the technology because of the videos I posted on Facebook of me doing certain lifts. So I was like, okay, this is just the technology again. So I turn over on my side, and I'm, at the top of my newsfeed, all of a sudden I see this video. It says, Charles snaps back at Shamia and Phaedra, right? So I'm into Real Housewives of Atlanta. That's from the new season. That's from the reunion. I didn't get to see that episode yet. So I was like, oh, so I click on it. As soon as I click on it, it's Charles, right? And if y'all don't watch the show, then these people are going to be irrelevant to you. So just go with what I'm saying. I'm going to try my best to tune you into what's going on without, like I said, going too deep into irrelevant things. But long story short, Charles and Angela are a new couple on Real Housewives of Atlanta. Charles is like 20 years Angela's senior. You know, he's like 60 something and Angela's in her early 40s, but he treats her like crap. He was in the NBA and Angela's a real estate agent. They both make a decent amount of money. Angela's like a lucrative real estate agent, but Charles is like this big NBA whoever. And then he ended up like getting into being a coach or whatever he got into. So he's like rich and, you know, has stuff going for him. And he's like, you know, whatever. I guess you could say, quote unquote, a high value man if you're into money and not character, right? If you're more into money than character. So she snagged him. She married him. I think she feels like she snagged a winner, despite the fact he's treating her like crap because he's, you know, whoever he is. So anyway, everybody saw in the show that the man was treating her terribly. And so she, you know, all the fans and stuff were making comments about how the man was treating her and seemed like he don't really love her or he's not into the relationship and da-da-da-da. And it's just a big humiliating thing, right? Even though they're married, right? So, she basically was just trying to defend herself about her husband, I guess, and the fact that they've been together for this amount of years. And, you know, this is just how he is. He's not like lovey-dovey on camera. And it's just the way he was responding to her, man. It wasn't even like, okay, you're just somebody that's reserved and you're not trying to show, you know, a lot of affection on camera. He actually seemed annoyed with her. You know, like in the scenes where they're showing him and her interacting and stuff, the man actually seemed annoyed, like he didn't want to be bothered with her. You know, it's almost like somebody that you don't like or despise, but you're married to them. That's what it seemed like. I wouldn't say despise, that's a bit much, but like somebody you're not into, but you're married to them. That's what it seemed like. But that happens sometimes too. Sometimes people are married and fall out of love. Who knows what it is really? I don't know. Or maybe it really is just this is how it seems on TV. And, you know, because a lot of reality TV relationships, like people will say this, like they call it the reality TV curse. Like as soon as you take your marriage on reality TV, it breaks apart. It could really just be this is how it looks, you know, because that's how it is sometimes where people are viewing something that looks one way and it's not the way that it looks. I can attest to that. So I don't know, but everybody was making comments about the way the man was moving with her, like he didn't like her, right? Even though he's married to her. So Phaedra, there was this big scandal with Phaedra and Portia, where this dude came in basically towards the last few episodes of the show, came into one of the scenes, and people were even saying that the producers hired him on to do this to make drama for the show, and you know, it's a bunch of conspiracy theories about where this dude came from. But he came out of nowhere and came in one of the episodes and came into like this party that they were all at. I came up to Angela and said, yo, I need to tell you something about your husband. I need to tell you something about your husband. So when he pulled her to the side to talk to her, basically telling her that Charles was out there cheating with all these different females. And so, you know, it's just kind of like, how come you never confronted me before I got on the show? Now I'm on this show, on this platform, and all of a sudden you're coming at me with this allegation or whatever it is. So anyway, she was doing her research and playing Inspector Gadget, trying to figure out who hired him and where he came from. And she put it together in her own head that she feels like Phaedra hired him because she did some research and found out that the dude went to high school with Phaedra's brother, even though they're in Athens, Georgia, or wherever they're at, whatever part of Georgia, and it's a small community apparently, and there are only like 3 high schools or something like that from what I understand. So it's not really that big of a deal that Phaedra's brother went to high school with the dude. That doesn't mean anything. But she put it together in her head and she saw pictures of the brother at some event where this guy was at or whatever she crazy Inspector Gadget stuff she did, right? And she put it together in her head and felt like Phaedra was the one that set the dude to come and confront her husband, Charles. So anyways, I'm not meaning to go into the drama of this thing with y'all because it's so irrelevant, right, to the grand scheme of things. I just want to explain to you what led to me getting the citations today. Hold on, y'all. Sorry, somebody's on the porch. Hold on a second, y'all. All right, y'all. Let me just stop the video and I'll come back and finish. Anyways, y'all. So, finishing up now, y'all, though. You know, because I want to get to the main point of why I'm even breaking this drama down to y'all in the first place. Because you don't know these people if you don't watch the show. So nonetheless, she in her mind, Angela, who's married to Charles, put it together in her head that for some reason she felt like Phaedra was the one that sent this dude after her husband to create the drama. So Phaedra's like, why would I do that? I'm relatively new to the show myself because Phaedra, if you're familiar with Real Housewives of Atlanta, you'll know this already, is an old wife from the show. She used to be on the show a few seasons back. Then this big drama happened with her and another housewife named Candy, where she was basically caught in a lie, you know, out of, you could say, revenge. She told a lie on Candy because she felt some kind of way about the way their friendship went. Something happened with the friendship where she felt like Candy betrayed her. And so out of anger, and it goes deep, y'all. If you watch the show, you'll understand this is irrelevant, but I'm just explaining to you why Phaedra wasn't on the show. Her husband, Phaedra's husband back in the day when she was still married, was best friends with Candy and her husband. And so then Phaedra's husband got caught doing white-collar crime. He was embezzling money and whatever else he was doing, being greedy, because he had money. He didn't have to do it. But he was embezzling money and all this other white-collar crime and ended up getting locked up. And so Candy and her husband kind of took side with her husband, Apollo, rather than Phaedra. And Phaedra felt like Candy wasn't there for her. And, it was a bunch of stupid drama. The FBI was involved. And so Phaedra, was embarrassed on national TV and also felt betrayed by Candy. So she just started saying all kinds of horrible, mean stuff, rumors, basically. And this is really going to hit now because, with my targeting, they claim that I say rumors about people or whatever the stupidness is. It's not true. But anyways, this was truly a rumor that Phaedra maliciously started. This was seasons back, y'all, when she was still on the show years ago. Basically started this rumor about Candy, saying that Candy was like a freak and an undercover lesbo. This is so crazy that it's just like hitting the narrative so well of my targeting, y'all. The craziness that happens with my targeting. It's just crazy. But anyway, saying that she was basically an undercover lesbo, Candy, and that she and her husband were having threesomes with different females. And she started this rumor that Candy wanted to drug Portia, another housewife, and have a threesome with her. And so Candy did not take too kindly to that. Of course not, because you're basically insinuating a rumor of sexual assault. And so that's what led to this big drama with Phaedra and Candy and Portia and the other housewives years ago. And Phaedra got kicked off the show for a while. They kicked Phaedra off the show for a few years. She was off the show, so she just got back on the show after that craziness there, right? Spreading those are malicious rumors, similar to what they're doing to me, actually, because anything I've said hasn't been nowhere near as heinous as that. Anyway, so Phaedra just got back on the show, and so now that she's back on the show, she's trying to lay low. Like, she wants to have, a certain level of drama so that they can give her a peach again. She wants to be valuable enough for the show that people want to see her on the show. But she's not going to try to start no big, huge scandal after having been off the show for so many years because of the scandal she started years ago. So that's why she's telling Angela, like, why me of all people? I just got back on the show. You know what I was involved with before. Why do you think me of all people would be the one to send someone after Charles? Realistically. And so that's what that drama and that scene is about, just so you can have context and understand that it doesn't relate to me and my situation at all, right? There's no relativity, but this is what they do when they're painting the false narrative. And it's like this teamwork thing with the technology where they send the sensitization and the false narrative, and then you have noise campaigns in the back, and if you're stupid enough, you bite the bait eventually and respond, which is what happened this morning. So like I told y'all, they were already putting the side chick thing on the computer screen on who the bleep did I marry, and they were making noise campaign in the back. I said, you know what, they're just doing this because I'm looking into the psychology thing or whatever, trying to get in my head. Just turned on my side and I started looking at my phone. I took off the psychology videos and I was just looking through my recommended, and I saw that video from the part 3 of the reunion. This is the reunion for this season, by the way, y'all, so I'm into it. I'm watching the show. I clicked on it. Stupid me, not really catching on that this might be some more manipulation with the technology. So I clicked on it, and that's where the thing with Angela and Charles, the new couple that's on the show, and Phaedra was going on. And so basically, Charles is now snapping off. He's actually at the reunion now, and he's snapping off at Phaedra and talking about, you don't know me. You don't know me. Why are you saying anything about me? And she said, well, the only reason I even mentioned you is because I'm being accused of sending this dude to mess up your marriage. And I was just saying that I know you from parties and stuff, but I don't know you enough to say that you cheated with anybody. So that's what she's saying in as a refutation to what Charles is saying. Because Charles is getting it all twisted. He's thinking that Phaedra was the one that was going by the Inspector Gadget work that Angela did. He's thinking that Phaedra's the one that sent the dude, and that Phaedra was saying all these rumors about him cheating and stuff. And he's already getting backlash from the audience who was watching the season and feels like he doesn't like his wife. So anyway, he's just misdirected anger is what it is. So he's flipping off on Phaedra, and like, you don't know me. Where do you know me from? And she said, I never said I know you. She said, I know of you. She said, I've been to parties with you with Sheree when you were dating Sheree back in the day. And Sheree is another housewife, y'all. She's no longer on the show, but she was on the show back in the day when Phaedra was on the show. Phaedra is still friends with Sheree. So just that's the dialogue that's going on. Charles basically barking at Phaedra, misdirected anger for him being accused of cheating and not liking his wife, barking at Phaedra when Phaedra was just defending herself and saying, yeah, I kind of know him, but I never said he cheated with anybody. I don't know him like that. You know, so that's what was going on in that scene. Of course, they took the scene out of context. They don't even know what the hell is going on. They don't watch the show. They do watch what I watch. So I notice a lot of the shows I watch, they be familiar with the characters and everything. They start watching what I watch. But they haven't really kept up with the show over the years. Not all of them. So the prior seasons with the prior drama, they don't know about it, right? So this scene, again, might seem out of context to them. All they're seeing is somebody's husband, right? Because they want to paint the false narrative with the cyber-stalking, cyberbullying guy that I made the videos about years ago. I haven't talked about him in eons. But ever so often, they try to reignite that thing because they know I got a lot of backlash on Island for it. I already proved my point with the situation. I'm done with it. And I already also came to conclusion and what's the word I'm looking for? Not resolution. I came to peace with the fact that nobody or majority of the people will not side with me. It's a subjective thing. It's no longer about right or wrong. It's about subjectivity. I don't know many people. I'm the target. I've said a lot of offensive things. It just is what it is. So I've already said my piece. I'm done with it, right? They kind of stopped sending the stuff, but ever so often when they want to like amp things up, especially if it's a moment where like something positive is happening, like I was getting excited about, you know, a new career path or whatever, getting back on my feet, they'll send the stuff with the technology to create stuff. I don't know who's sending it. I don't know if it's the AI doing it. I don't know if it's like certain people in boots that's controlling it, you know, controlling it and deciding to send certain themes. But I noticed a pattern that when something positive is happening, then I started getting attacked with the technology, whether it be pushing a false narrative, coming for my self-esteem, etc., etc. So I'm just like, oh my God, you know, at this point now I did respond because they're reffing in the background. When he's yelling at Phaedra, I don't know you. They're reffing in the background. I said, I know y'all can't be serious. I said, I know y'all are not, first of all, making this situation that's not even anywhere near close related to the situation with that dude and myself. I know y'all are not making this about that situation, first of all. And second of all, I'm like, you're making it like I didn't know him now? So first it was that I was his side piece and I was messing with him and this and that, and I was on a revenge plot and I wanted to break up his marriage and this and that. Now you're making noise that it's that I don't know him at all? So of course I finally responded like a dumb doobie. I responded to the noise campaign in the background. Now they made noise for revenge. Not because they know the other thing doesn't make any fucking sense. They know full well the other thing doesn't make sense. So now they're going to come with revenge. Y'all, let me break it down for you again, because they know the story back to front. Just like how they know what happened with the gym guy. And whenever I tell the story, all of a sudden they're quiet. They know the story back to front. But they'll purposely, again, make noise campaigns and perpetuate false things because they do not like me. It's a subjective thing when you're targeted. So anyways, again, I don't want to rehash the whole thing, but now I was given citations this morning because this is what the whole thing is about, y'all. It's an update on the car accident number 4, an update on the situation. Like I told you, I hadn't heard from the officer. It's been about 2 months. You know, I hadn't heard from him, so I figured they were giving me a break because they know what took place that day. I was like, maybe he's going to contact me and give me one citation. You know, something has to be written. You know, I know they have to put something to it, especially since an insurance claim was made. I got slapped with 3 citations this morning, and the call happened right after I started responding to the stupidness with Charles and Angela and the noise campaign in the background. So I'm like, this is so unfair. That's where I started getting like, this is unfair. Come on, man. Like, really? I feel like I got baited into that. That's so unfair. So anyways, the response I had was, I was like, first of all, y'all know full well I know him because I know y'all saw the receipt video that I got so much backlash for. I said, why would he message me about Captain America and Hey Reefy if he didn't know me or I didn't know him? So then they start warping it, right? And they stop making the noises. I'm continuing to watch the scene as I'm answering them, by the way, right? The scene with Angela, Charles, and Phaedra. So then they start saying that, oh, it's, you know, Angela starts saying, you know, this is done with the technology, by the way. Remember, I told you they can change videos in real time. So when I said that thing about the receipt video, then all of a sudden Angela's saying, yeah, well, you know, the thing with Charles is he's dated so many women in the past and some women had trouble letting go and this and that, this and that. This is what they start saying. So this is where, of course, my stupid ass bit the bait again. And I said, trouble letting go. I said, y'all saw that message that I didn't respond to, where I blocked him or whatever I said. That's what led to the 3 citations, because I just spit the facts, because they were painting a false narrative with the technology but couldn't let go. If that were the case, then I would have definitely flew and answered that message, wouldn't I have? Or even with the messages that were old messages, I was very honest about when that came from. Those messages were from like 2016 or 2017, the Captain America messages. Those were relatively old messages. Where he was writing me, he wrote me a few messages and I didn't respond. And then he said, hello, hello. That was in the receipt video too. If I were really that hung up on the dude, don't you think I would have been answering his messages? They just want to paint false narratives because they don't like me. That's what it's about. And they think I'm a bitch. Anyway, so nonetheless, the only reason I put that video together anyway was just to prove my point. Because similar to what happened today is what they were doing back then when I talked about the situation in the first place. Making it like I was some bitter ex on a rampage for revenge. I made it very clear that me and that man were never together. We were friends. I never even kissed him. I hugged him one time in my life. We were never together. I don't lie on myself or on people. That's one thing I don't do. I'm not going to lie and fake a relationship. Me and that man were never together. What happened was things went awry, right? And then I started getting bullied for years because I accused him, which I was wrong for. I admit. I was wrong. I was wrong. I was wrong. I've said it a million times. I should not have accused him. I was going through trauma. I broke up with the ex that was leading me on, the one that took my virginity. I told the whole story a million times. And then he was kind of like a rebound for me. Not in a disrespectful way, because he's a good person and a cool person. And typically, it's not like specific to him. It's just that's what was going on at the time. I was getting led on by this dude. My ex, I had lost a lot of weight. I was sick. That was kind of around the time when I became an alcoholic, by the way. And shortly before I moved home. Anyway, so I was talking to him. It was kind of like a rebound thing. And he was a good person to talk to. He had a good listening ear. He had his head on his shoulders. A good personality. I had at least talking chemistry with him. And so I was talking to him, and it was kind of like an escape from my real situation where this dude was leading me on and using me. Like, that's really what was going on. I already talked about what happened with that ex, where I was with him, then I broke up with him, got back with him like 2 years later, and he was leading me on. We ended up giving him my virginity. And it was kind of like this thing where he just led me on. Like, he was leading me on and using me and whatever was going on. So I was skinny, I had started drinking at the time. I wasn't an alcoholic yet, but that was the start. And I had started talking to that dude. And so it was kind of like an escape, really, that situation with him and I. But it wasn't a real relationship. I keep referring to it as a relation. We did have a genuine friendship at one point in time. But it was a relation. It wasn't a relationship. I wasn't with him. I never said I was. He never cheated on me with his wife. Even before his wife or his girlfriend, whoever she is, was in the picture, things with him and I had not worked. I was being stalked and harassed and bullied. As a matter of fact, when things went awry, I remember that my brother-in-law was on island. My story never changes. My brother-in-law was on island. This was before he became a nurse or whatever. He was working at Kmart doing security, the same ranger that I'm doing now. And my brother-in-law that summer was doing ranger. And he was doing security in Kmart too. He befriended my brother-in-law. Even though I had told my brother-in-law what happened with the situation, he and my sister knew. He still befriended my brother-in-law and picked my brother-in-law up and took him to the local bar down here, Sharky's. And so I remember that was freaking me out. Because at this time, things had started getting weird. I started noticing weird activity on my Facebook. That was the start of me getting bullied from that situation. And so I'm like, oh, damn, now he's picked up my brother-in-law. I'm taking my brother-in-law to Shark. I just started looking kind of, I don't mean to say this, side-eye at my brother-in-law. Because I'm like, he knows kind of what happened between me and this guy. You don't know him. You're from Florida. And you're befriending him. I remember kind of talking to my sister, like, why is he, And she said, oh, well, he came up to so-and-so and started talking to him and making friends with him and this and that. So I remember even that freaking me out. But there was no relationship between him and I. It was really just that I got bullied because of my own stupidity and my accusing him. I did accuse him. That's the one time. I keep telling y'all in these videos, there's one time where I truly bared false witness. That was the time. Every other time I've made like insinuations. Like, for instance, my roommate. When I was going through this targeting thing recently, y'all, when the targeting started, and it felt like witchcraft. I thought somebody had done witchcraft on me. I was saying, well, I have a roommate, in my full story. If you listen to my full story, you'll hear me say this. I have a roommate from in my early 20s where weird things was happening in the apartment, and she could have done this or that. I didn't say she did it for sure. It's not like with that dude where I was hardcore accusing him. For a good minute, I was accusing him of whatever I thought he was doing. Right? That's the only time I truly did bear false witness. There was no other time. The other times I made insinuations, and they're calling that bearing false witness. Anyways, y'all, and I know this sounds like crazy talk, but if you've been keeping up with my videos and you're not new to the channel, or if you're new to the channel, but you've taken the time to listen to my story and listen to my videos and stuff, then you'll know what I'm talking about. You're familiar with this situation with the cyberstalking and cyberbullying dude and all the backlash I got on Island for it, and how they started creating false lie-ass narratives about the situation because they didn't like me. Anyways, so nonetheless, those messages that I showed where he was saying the Captain America thing and he was writing me all those messages, that was after I had moved back home and I was teaching for the Department of Education. I was a paraeducator at one of the elementary schools out in Christiansted. And I remember was seeing these messages on Facebook, and I'm just like, why is he, like, still sending me stuff while I'm getting bullied? Because at this point now, this was years after the situation. This was like 2016 or 2017. I can't remember the year. I had it in the receipt video that I deleted. I still have it in my emails. I'm not going back to them. But weird activity on my Facebook where like honeypots were adding me on Facebook and sending me messages, and then they'd be using the word great and whatever other stupid shit, bullshit, and whatever else was happening. But he's still messaging me off and on during those years. And so this is why I was ignoring his messages, because I'm like, we're not genuine friends anymore. I'm getting bullied. I know you know what's going on. But you're sending me these messages is what I thought was odd. It's not like he was trying to get next to me. He wasn't trying to, hey, let's go meet up and do stuff. Like, it wasn't anything like that. It's more so like, I think, like this taunting thing where he's sending me these messages passive aggressively. And you know what's going on. You know what's happening. He even had me help him write a letter for his job in the hospital. He was getting some new position. He had just become a nurse. And he was getting some new position or some promotion he was trying to get. And he asked me to help him write a letter. And I wrote the letter, right? So I wasn't always a bitch to him. I wrote a whole letter for him and gave it to him and sent it to him, thinking that would make the situation okay. All them stuff was happening too, by the way. And I was still getting bullied. Nothing changed. Like, I was still having honeypots add me, and there's still the weird activity going on. I'm just like, eventually I just stopped answering his messages, and I just realized that this situation, it is what it is. It's kind of like the targeting. It's just like it's happening and I can't stop it. And so after a while, you can see in the receipt video where I responded after he said, why aren't you answering? Do you like Captain America? Whatever he was saying, whatever stupid messages he was saying. I forgot what I said, but I was basically saying, I don't think it's appropriate for us to keep talking. You know what's going on. Whatever I said, you could see it in the receipt video, and I deleted it now. I still have it. I could pull it up on my email right now. But I got so much backlash for the receipt video, that's why I took the video down. But you could see where I finally responded after ignoring his messages, and I said, hey, like, why are you sending me these messages? I don't think it's appropriate for us to still be talking, whatever I said. Blocked him. I hadn't heard from him for years. That was like 2016 or 2017. I might be a little off with the timeline. I did not see any activity from this dude again until 2018 with the Kadan situation. We're on Facebook, and I talked about this in detail. I don't mean to rehash this stuff. I got 3 citations for having a reaction to them sending false narratives about the same situation. So now I'm talking about it. So anyway, I didn't hear anything or a peep from this dude again from like 2018 until 2018 when the Kadan situation happened. I'm not going to rehash the situation, y'all. I talked about it in detail in my full story. Where Kadan, I sent pictures from my Facebook, old pictures, right? There was a picture of me in a white tracksuit. There was a picture of me smiling with my mom with a filter on and Sharkies. And I don't remember what the third picture was. And I texted it to Kadan. And after I texted it to Kadan, I went on Facebook and he liked 2 of those same pictures. The one with the white tracksuit and the one with my mom where we had the filter on. And so I remember showing my sisters. I took a screenshot and I showed them. And they were telling me that it was an algorithm. Because I interacted with the picture, it probably showed up in the news feed. And so he probably liked it. I'm like, that doesn't make sense because I didn't like the picture. I didn't comment on the picture. I took a screenshot of the picture. That only happens if you like or you comment on the picture. Then it might start trending in the newsfeed again, and he might see that, okay, I'll like that picture. That's not the case. So I don't even know if even back then my family was involved in whatever was going on, and they were hacking my phone and, trying to teach me a lesson. I'm starting to question everything now, to be honest. But anyway, that was the last time I heard from him until the targeting. Then in 2021, after my targeting had started, by the way, so I don't know if he had heard about it or what was going on. My targeting started in 2020. Right? And I had a screenshot of a message that he sent to me on Facebook. I had just created the Facebook a year prior. So I don't even know how he knew I had Facebook. I had just created the Facebook a year prior. And then a year later in 2021, this was a year after my targeting started. The Facebook I have now is not an old Facebook. Let me go to the Facebook now. I can tell you how long I had the Facebook. I think they have somewhere that says created in where they say when you creation date. You see that? April 28th, 2021, right? So I just wanted to make sure I had the right date and not mixing up the timeline. So I created this Facebook in 2021, and the message he sent me was that same year. So I don't know how he knew I had Facebook. Maybe at that time, all then, he had access to the cameras, because there were people down here that had access to the cameras that were on me while the targeting was happening before it went viral, right? So maybe all then, because I was living in that neighborhood with his family, and remember I told you gang stalking stuff was happening with his dad and my dad, maybe all then he knew about my targeting. I don't really know, right? But anyway, so I remember in 2021, I just see this random friend request from him. And then at one, it was like one something. I remember it being this weird, odd time. I'm like, why is he writing me at this hour in the morning? But it was like one something, I just see, hey, Reefy. And so I blocked him. So no, I'm not hung up on him. It's not me. I'm not hung up on him. And I'm not saying he's hung up on me. But maybe there's some sort of level of revenge on his end. It doesn't matter if things are going good in his life and things are going bad in my life. You still have to look at the facts and the particulars. Things just started going bad for me because I'm a target. There's been activity between him and I for years, off and on. It's not a consistent thing, and he wasn't trying to get next to me. He wasn't trying to cheat on whatever he had going on. It was like this passive-aggressive thing. I keep saying that. I think I really hurt his feelings whenever I said whatever the offensive shit I said. So anyways, so 2021, that was what I put in the receipt video. I put the message that he sent me. It was like 1 something in the morning. I had just created the Facebook in April, and I saw a friend request from him, and then I saw a message that said, hey, Reefy. So I'm like, what the heck? So I remember showing my sisters, and then I just I blocked him, but I took a screenshot of the message. The message is still there in my, not spam box, in the people you may know box. And recently when I made the receipt video, I put it there. But him and I never had a relationship. He never cheated on his girlfriend, wife, whatever situation is going on. At least not with me. If he did, it wasn't with me. It wasn't like that. That's not what it was about. I think it was like a revenge thing similar to what's happening with the dude in the gym, where it's like this continuous thing because I said offensive shit. So anyways, yeah, so this is why when they say, oh, you didn't know him, I'm like, or you're trying to get revenge and you can't let go. I'm like, me, I couldn't let go. What are you talking about? So anyways, I just can't deal with the false narratives. It's like this delusional, paint the false narrative just because we don't like her type thing. And if we all paint it, it's going to be true. No, it's not. So anyways, that's what happened with that situation. And so I started to just kind of stupidly respond to, because I had turned my back from them putting the stupid shit on the computer. And I'm on my phone looking through, and I see the thing with him, not with him, but the thing whatever they were trying to do with the technology, and them making noise in the background. And so foolishly, I started responding and saying what I'm saying now, but in less detail. And then next thing you know, a couple minutes later, I get a call from the officer. Oh, I need to make contact with you. I'm like, okay, if the call had happened and that hadn't happened, then I would have been like, okay, cool. But it's like it happened right after that happened. And then it's 3 citations I got slapped with. And they know what happened that day too. I'm just like, it's so unfair. I don't even have money to pay for that. 3? Anyway, so that's what it is, y'all. I just want to document that. It's just unfair. Anyway, I'll talk to you on the next one. Peace out.